Good evening. I'm your host, Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Glad to have you here. If you like what we're doing, please hit like and subscribe. It is a passive gesture that goes a long way. If you are a returning listener or one of our very valued patrons, so glad to have you back. I want to thank everyone that joined me for another Music Movie Monday, where we watched the all-star cult classic Streets of Fire from 1984, part musical, part dark graphic novel. It's a fun look at an alternate universe of 50s tropes with some standout performances by Diane Lane and Willem Dafoe. If you missed it, that's fine, because the replay will be up a little later, maybe after this show. Haven't got it up yet, but it'll be up with all of the pre-conversation, a lot of the post-movie reviews, and in-movie banter. After this show, for patrons and paid YouTube subscribers, we'll be going beyond the velvet rope of the virtual VIP to engage in some champagne-inspired ridiculousness. Since we're discussing MTV, I'll be playing VJ, maybe with our guest Ryan Zickgraf. I'm not sure. It's a little later where he is. But for a bit, where we'll be more Beavis and Butthead than Martha Quinn and Carson Daly. However you see it, should be a fun, nostalgic romp into playing some videos of another era. Now, if you'd like to join us for movie nights and champagne rooms, there is a couple of easy ways. You can become a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber. Your donation makes sure that TIR can continue to stay on air and bring programming such as this. $3 a month or a one-time payment for $30 for the year is all it takes. And with Christmas around the corner, you can give the gift of TIR to your family and right-wing friends. Trust me, it's worth it. Now, on to what you guys came here for. Generation X futility and the end of a cultural icon, MTV. On August 1st, 1981, MTV flipped the switch and stepped into the expanding universe of cable television, a medium once heralded as the great democratizer of entertainment. What began as an experiment in broadcasting, music you could see, quickly became a cultural supernova, rewriting the rules of pop aesthetics, marketing, celebrity, and rebellion itself. The Buggles joked that video killed the radio star, but nobody yet understood how thoroughly MTV would teach us to hear with our eyes, and how much power that shift would ultimately have. What we now remember as MTV's iconic early years were, of course, built atop the fault lines of American popular culture. At launch, it was a rock station, full stop, an identity shaped not only by taste, but by a music industry still deeply siloed by race. This was just a few years after Chicago's infamous Disco Demolition Night, a riotous declaration of so-called rock purity with racist undertones. MTV didn't think of itself as racist, but formats are politics, and in 1981, black music didn't fit their format, even if Michael Jackson's Off the Wall had already sold over 10 million records. Prince was actually aired on MTV a year before Michael Jackson and slipped through the cracks with 1999. But it took the gravitational force of Thriller and Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo on Beat It to pull Michael Jackson out of the realm of black music and into the rotation, and to force MTV to admit that cultural power didn't always come packaged the way they expected. And once MTV embraced its influence, it embraced it fully. The network's Video Music Awards became a kind of annual carnival of pop rule breaking. Eddie Murphy clowning, the old guard, Madonna rolling around in a wedding dress and an act of televised masturbatory glory. Every taboo and spectacle reimagined as youth revolt. But as the internet democratized access to music in a way cable never really did, MTV pivoted. First to game shows, then to proto-reality TV, and eventually to the shock and spectacle era of Teen Mom, Jackass, The Real World, and 1,000 shows about beautiful people behaving badly. The aesthetics of rebellion curdled into the economics of voyeurism. By the time the smartphone arrived, MTV had already trained us for the endless scroll. Reality television was simply the bridge between the music video era and the attention economy we all swim in now. MTV didn't cause the culture we live in, but maybe it rehearsed it. And for those of us who grew up with the channel, its death isn't shocking so much as belated. MTV promised that the revolution would be televised, but what they didn't say was that it would be a revolution of branding, not of material transformation. Our rebels were rarely workers, they were artists, icons, avatars of feeling rather than agents of change. And for Generation X, who found themselves reflected in this new media mirror, the politics of style often replaced the politics of power. Tonight, we're talking to someone who has thought deeply about this. Journalist Ryan Zickgraf has written a sharp and incisive essay for Unheard on the end of MTV, the political futility of Generation X. Wherever you are watching or listening to the show later, there is a link in the description to the article. Now, please welcome, coming all the way live from a bunker somewhere in the Northeast, Ryan Zickgraf.
I want my MTV.
What's going on, Ryan?
I want my MTV.
Did they ask you to write the piece, or did you do it on your own?
Oh, that was my idea. When I saw the news, I thought back. I got a little nostalgic for my youth. So MTV was a big part of my life in my first 20 years or so. So yeah, I decided to write it.
Did you grow up with cable in the house?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm old, so
we're the same age, right? 77.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I remember a time when I had an old dial TV with 12 channels on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big deal when my parents got cable, and it opened up new, because back then in the early 80s, it was mostly just dumb sitcoms and PBS and news. And so all of a sudden, when you had 20 or 30 channels and then you had this MTV, that was like, ooh, for me, growing up religious, it was like the forbidden fruit on channel 22.
What did MTV do right in changing the music industry and actually in the careers of some successful artists? Many people who call themselves music aficionados never cite that MTV was kind of the end of yacht rock, but because they didn't play those guys. But seriously, how is MTV able to make the pivot from radio to television so seamlessly?
I mean, yeah. I mean, as you said, that there's not every artist could make that transition, and it tended to be. I mean, let's face it. There's a lot of those bands from the 70s. A lot of scraggly looking dudes, right? That weren't very telegenic, right? Have you seen like the members of Boston?
Yeah.
or Chicago, or
yeah.
A lot of these guys. Not a lot of good looking bunch. And I suppose that's also true of a lot of the bands that appeared on early MTV, but a lot of the artists and a lot of the musicians that were able to break in had a personal style. They had an image that they were able to cultivate. They had a certain telegenic style. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like anything else. It's almost like politicians, right? The ones that succeeded in the new medium looked and talked sang a certain way.
Did you ever, I don't know how deeply you think about this kind of stuff, because you don't have to write about, pop culture to this extent, but also to the music that we're going album oriented rock, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I call it. Some people call it yacht rock, but that music was also much more mature, and it felt like MTV was really trying to get a younger audience. But even if you watch the early ads While it had kind of hip East Coast inspired pop art in the early iconography for the show, especially with the commercials, those commercials have like Mick Jagger.
Yep.
Kiss without the makeup was one of their big shows in 1983, and these are guys that are in their 30s and 40s. But eventually, and this has more to do with the fact that these were the people that were just giving them videos, they start to get what we're later going to call new wave, right? Like the Durans are going to start flooding the channel. A lot of this stuff from the UK to Police. So they're eventually going to have like younger people, Madonna. You said you watched the first 2 original hours of MTV, and you said one of the people they played was Pat Benatar. And when I think of, music for young people, I don't know if I think of Pat Benatar.
Yeah, I was telling my wife while watching this, it struck me that so many of these like younger pop stars, even now, are like, I don't know, girls, where Pat Benatar was a goddamn woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like probably maybe in her late 20s, but she kind of had this like older, crusty 40-something woman who's pissed. There was like this interesting transition because you had a lot of, in that early years of MTV, you had a lot of artists and bands that were successful on radio. And you're right that a lot of them were, I guess, like more mature, or like we're doing these like sappy romances and sort of jangly pop. And eventually, MTV took older music, music intended for older people, and then put it on its own channel, which was VH1.
Yeah. When did they do that?
I think it was like the late 80s.
That's the later 80s, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that when MTV really blows up? Is that the breakout year for the channel when they could branch out?
No, not really. I feel like 84 and 85 was huge for MTV because that's when like Michael Jackson's Thriller came out. That's when like Madonna really bust out. And I feel like, I feel like, and then, I guess it was 85, but like Live Aid, that big benefit concert they had.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, I think that that MTV started getting younger, but it was still really big in the mid 80s.
There's a comment on the screen. I don't know if you can read it.
Yeah, speaking of 80s idols.
They told me I look like Sally Jesse Raphael with my glasses, so this is the 80s interview that everybody really wanted.
Yeah.
Black Sally Jesse and Dahmer.
I prefer porn star, 80s porn star.
To 80s cannibal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a personal preference.
It's funny you mentioned 84 and 85. MTV also aired the 1983 US Festival, which is a massive concert that for some reason is forgotten in the annals of history, and I don't know why. Maybe because there was no campaign around it for ending world hunger or farmers like Farm Aid and Live Aid and some of these other aids that were going.
Oh, We Are the World too.
We Are the World, yeah. USA for Africa.
Yeah.
Hearing Aid. Remember Hearing Aid?
Oh, come on now.
Do they know it's Christmas time? Yeah, I'm not making that up.
Hearing Aid, really?
Hearing Aid, yeah. Yeah, I'm being totally serious. Okay, it was the heavy metal version. If you think I'm lying, Google it. Yeah.
Okay. I do remember Rock Against Reagan, by the way.
That was more punk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was more punk.
Yeah. But that's the year, and going back and reading your piece and then writing this, I was trying to remember the year Eddie Murphy hosted the MTV Music Awards. Because
was it like 86?
It was 85.
Okay.
No, sorry, 84. Because the year before it was like Bette Midler and I think Billy Crystal. So again, MTV, when they first start, I don't think they really have the pulse of the youth yet. And by the time that saying comes into be, I want my MTV, and you get all the commercials, I really think then that's when they figured it out. Because the two moments that that most people remember, if you've ever seen that award show, is Eddie Murphy kind of being awkwardly Eddie Murphy in his mid-20s, and Madonna masturbating on stage in a wedding dress. Which sounds it sounds insane.
I thought you were going to say the moonwalk, but
that was the Motown 25-year special that Michael Jackson did.
Oh, right.
Right. But also finding out little trivia tidbits, because people love to think that it was CBS Records threatening to pull Michael Jackson's music that forced MTV to play him, and that's not true. There's different executives at MTV that tell totally different stories. They claim that CBS made the whole thing up, and they were like, why wouldn't we want to play Michael Jackson? He was the biggest artist in the world. That's ridiculous. And it eliminates the fact that, as we said off air, one of the original VJs, right, video jockeys, was a black guy named JJ, former radio guy, and Prince was played on MTV because he was a rock act. Is that something that we also forget with MTV, because so many of us are too young to really remember when it was just random videos with no set time for different genres?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you watch in the original 2 hours, like, it's just people being like, MTV is going to revolutionize music. It's going to be, and then all of a sudden it's Rod Stewart dancing in my pants. And then it's
old ass Rod Stewart.
Oh yeah, Rod Stewart, man. Yeah, like those early years, like there was a lot of like Phil Collins and yeah, all these bands that we don't necessarily associate with MTV anymore. But yeah, it's the shows, like the formats where you had like Yo MTV Raps, you had Hairbangers Ball. That didn't come till later on. That didn't come till later in the 80s, early 90s.
What was the reason for MTV's pivot to so much unscripted reality programming?
Well, I don't know if it was unscripted. It's probably semi-scripted, but I
think that's the proper name for it.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're supposed to call it. So they hit a point. MTV hit a point in the 90s where it became big business, right? When you watch the early years, it was the scrappy, get us on your cable network, and then it became this behemoth, right? That suddenly artists were clamoring to be on, and they're making a ton of money. Well, and then the corporate owners wanted to get more money, and the thing with having random videos, something different every 3 to 5 minutes, is that a lot of times people would switch the channel if it was a video they didn't like, and so MTV is like, we're losing viewers that way. We want to find a way to keep people glued to the TV for a full half an hour so they'll watch our ads. So, I mean, it was just sort of your typical capitalist driven, having people watch for 30 minutes is better than 3 for the sake of advertisers. So it was like literally like a sellout situation. Or like, what can we do different to get the young people to keep watching,
keep the eyeballs there? I remember The Real World. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
I had people that I know were on that show. Kurt Cobain is often cited as this tragic figure caught between selling out and battling for authenticity in a sea of fakes. The same marketing was used for bands like Guns N' Roses, who were on the same label. You even quote Mark Fisher in your piece, where he mentions that Kurt Cobain understood nothing sells better than anti-MTV on MTV. Kurt Cobain did sign with the major and did want to make money and have a certain amount of access and success. Do we mythologize his life a bit much?
Oh yeah, I'm sure, but we do with so many people that died in their 20s, right? From James Dean to music artists like Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison. It is interesting, like with Jim Morrison, because it seems like people turned on him and they're like, oh yeah, he was always a poser with terrible lyrics. But I think that there's something about Kurt Cobain, like the tragedy of here is this guy who seemed like a tormented soul. He always seemed torn by success, and he kind of had his foot in both worlds, like the punk scene, the indie scene, and he had a distaste for MTV, even though he was on it all the time, and it really made him who he was. And so the fact that he ended up committing suicide, he kind of just like stood out as this sort of transcendent figure, even though Nirvana only put out like 3 albums,
including Alive.
Oh, including
no. You're right. Yeah, 3: Bleach, Nevermind, and In Utero, and then the Live. So there's 4 with the Live.
Yep. The Unplugged album,
MTV Unplugged. I mean, look, I'm not trying to crap on a man's legacy. It's just when I think about how people talk about him, you have to remember how people talked about Guns N' Roses, because they were supposed to be the salve from overblown pop metal that we're later going to call glam or hair metal, because they were coming out of the same area. They were doing something different, and they were raw, and they were authentic, and all the drugs they did made them authentic and real. It's like, but they signed to a major, and there's nepotism within this band, and none of that matters. It's just like, oh, they're so real. And look, you can like Appetite for Destruction as much as me, but I don't know if you can like it more than me. It's just, do you feel there's a disconnect in the way we look at these bands because we've been so MTV advised that we see the grunge as this pivot to a return to authenticity?
Yeah, there's aspect. I mean, because grunge was always seen as a rebel. I mean, sometimes it was because the bands themselves posed themselves that way.
Mm-hmm.
Just like punk was an answer to prog rock and the excesses of like 70s stadium rock, grunge was posed as sort of a return to authentic, no bombastic. Like a lot of like 80s metal was about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And a lot of grunge was about hating yourself.
Because you were having sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right. Exactly. I'm doing this, but man, I feel really bad about it.
I feel so bad about what I did to Winona Ryder.
Yeah. I'm just so self-aware, where the 80s, the hair metal was like, I don't give a shit, I'm just going to party with the rock stars and drink whiskey from a high heel, and, but yeah, of course. I mean, the interesting thing is, like, the real Nirvana, if you want to think about it this way, it was actually like Fugazi.
Ooh.
Because
you're going there. You just pissed off all of Seattle. I love it. Keep going.
Well, no, I'm just saying Fugazi actually, never went on MTV, right? And they achieved a certain kind of underground stardom, but while keeping their principles of like we're gonna not sell any merchandise, we're not going to make any music videos,
right.
and then concerts are going to be really cheap, and so they actually practiced the ethos that a lot of the grunge bands only talked about.
It's interesting you bring up a band like Fugazi, because if you grew up kind of solely on MTV, then they are not in your purview.
Right. Yep. And there's a lot of bands like that now. It's funny because, there's a lot of younger Gen Zers that are into like a lot of 80s and 90s music now. and they assume that bands like maybe not Fugazi, but even like the Pixies and some of these other bands that were they think were like on MTV all the time, but no, they really weren't. They're more underground.
Very much more underground. There ended up being a show for that music. It was called 120 Minutes, if
Yes.
you remember.
Yeah.
I feel like anyone that watched 120 Minutes probably reads Jacobin. I feel comfortable saying that.
That's a pretty good call.
If you watched Headbangers Ball and you MTV Raps Like Me, you probably don't. You might write an article in Jacobin, but you're not a diehard reader. If you went to the early Lollapaloozas, you definitely read Jacobin.
I went to 6 Lollapaloozas, mostly in like the early 2010s, and I used to watch 120 Minutes, and I've written for Jacobin. So you got me pegged, buddy. You win that one.
College rock don't stop.
That's right.
We've done a few shows. There's a woman, oh god, Catherine, I'm forgetting her last name. She was
Zeta Jones, Lou. The other one, the other Catherine.
This is White Catherine. She wrote a really good book about college radio. That go back and watch that show that we did, guys, on college radio. It's one of my favorite shows that we've done on here. And then she came back. We did another show on the history of Lollapalooza as well. Because I always found that whole tour very fascinating, because I think that can't happen without something like MTV. Like, college radio was big, but MTV gave you legitimacy, right? MTV gave Jane's Addiction a certain amount of legitimacy for them to bring up all these other bands that weren't getting that same kind of play. Like, I think Susie and the Banshees were in the first Lollapalooza.
Yeah, I mean, and if you study the history of Lollapalooza too, it kind of tracks with MTV and the fact that it became more commercial and more brand oriented than in the early days. Like, the first Lollapalooza still had a sort of like this punk rock spirit to it, and then if you go now, it's like, welcome to the Vitamin Water stage, with Justin Bieber, and yeah.
I'm trying to read the question. I can't. You got me thinking about Lollapalooza now and that moment. And why is our generation so obsessed with this idea of selling out, yet we always sell out? Maybe with bands like Fugazi being the exception, and there's a handful of people that you can say are exceptions.
Yeah,
I don't look at Henry Rollins as a sellout because he was in movies. He pivoted away from doing music, and he had to pay the bills, and he lived in LA. It worked out. I don't know would you call him a sellout?
No. He definitely was a self-promoter, but I don't know if I'd call him a sellout. There may be a fine line between that, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I was just reading, I might be reviewing this book that just came out called Blank Space, which I actually recommend to you in particular. I think you'd enjoy it, but it's sort of a cultural history of the 21st century. And a lot of his thesis is that that there's just been this fusion of capitalism and art, that has just embedded in like music and fashion, art's DNA. But he starts the book talking about Pearl Jam, interestingly enough, and about how at a certain point in like whatever 91, 92, MTV wanted to make them, they had started to get a lot of play, and that they kind of they kind of went dark after a while. Like, they felt ashamed about being huge and commercial, and so they kind of like stopped making videos like after Jeremy and even Flo and all that, and that they kind of were refusing superstardom in a certain way, and that spirit is gone in the 21st century. And I think there's something to that.
That's what we'll call it for grunge for all intents and purposes for the show. If you think about the lifespan of that genre, it really is only 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then they're doing arenas, and a lot of those bands hanging up. People die.
Heroin overdoses.
Yeah, there's issues. The same thing can be said for what we're going to call hair metal, that it's supposedly killed, which it didn't. It was dead before they got there.
Right.
It only really lasts like 3 years. 84 to 87? 88?
I'd throw in 88, maybe some of 89.
There's bands coming out, but nobody cares.
When did Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 come out?
Those in the 90s. I would never call Guns N' Roses a hair metal band.
Okay.
They just came out in the 80s. That's not fair. If that's the case, the Metallica's a hair metal band. They had a video.
Oh, come on now. Calm down.
They just came out in the 80s. They're not a hair metal band. You can't put on Appetite for Destruction and put on Enough.
Round and Round by Rat. Okay.
Round and Round by Rat. You can't put on those two. If you listen to heavy music in 1982 to 1984, 83 is the year that Quiet Riot has a #1 single with Metal Health. They have #1 album, sorry. #1 album.
Yeah.
And then Motley Crue has Shout at the Devil. That's a metal record. It's a metal record, but it's a metal record. They find bigger success with the follow-up Theater of Pain, where they got the pink on and all the lipstick and shit. And then a lot of people follow suit because that's the pathway. Then you get the derivative bands like Poison in 86. And then by 87, you have bands looking for members like, we need a singer in the style of Poison. It's like, but that band just came out a year ago. But that's the hot thing because they're on MTV.
Oh, yeah.
And MTV likes these people because they make for great television, right? They have a wild out there look, and the videos are crazy. Wild, and there's chicks and young men are tuning in. And it made for great TV for a very short time, but by 87, Motley Crue is done with all the makeup. Guns N' Roses comes out. That really puts an end to a lot of that shit. That second wave of LA bands, they're not really doing the whole makeup shit at all because they didn't dig it. So anyone that's still doing all that overblown pink guitar shit, you know, they're 2 years behind. That's just my opinion. And grunge is something very similar, right? You have the first wave of the sub pop bands that all got major label deals. All their videos hit. Then everybody's wearing plaid and trying to sound tortured. Like Stone Temple Pilots is not from Seattle. They're from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
What's Billy Corrigan's band? Smashing Pumpkins is from
Chicago.
Illinois. Yeah, they're from Chicago.
Yeah.
But they all get lumped into this grunge category that I don't know if you could put them all in.
Well, I wouldn't say the Smashing Pumpkins. I'd say that there was like, it was such a generic term, but just alternative rock. And I feel like Smashing Pumpkins always got called alternative rock, just like everybody did. Like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like everybody.
What do you call the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
They were kind of like funk rock, with some, I guess, rap. Like some people call them like rap funk rock.
They used to rap in the first few records.
Yeah. I mean, Give It Away. That's kind of really lame rap.
Is that one of your go-to songs when you're trying to put your child to sleep?
Oh, karaoke.
Where do you put a band like Faith No More?
I call them, I guess, like funk metal, maybe. It depends on the album. Now we're gonna get deep into just arcana right here.
I'm fine with that. We have to settle the battle. Who is?
I mean, because Epic
Faith No
and
More,
like
Red Hot Chili
like
Peppers, who
some
wins?
of their songs are kind of thrash metal, but then also like distinctive bass and Mike Patton's vocals he would sometimes venture into rap like lyrics.
Yeah, yeah. But who's better? Is it Faith No More or Red Hot Chili Peppers? You have to decide.
Oh, personally, Faith No More, but
Okay, that's all we needed to hear, Ryan. We're just waiting for you to say the truth.
I'm pandering. No, I actually saw Faith No More live in 1996, and I met Mike Patton, and I accidentally mistook the keyboardist for the guitarist, and I made myself look like an ass.
You, Roddy, and
John Hudson. It was John Hudson at the time.
96. So it's when what is his name? I'm forgetting his name. When he left, the dude with the curly hair. Can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Many people always point to Gen X as the generation that got nothing accomplished. Why do you think that's the case?
The thing, well, as I say in my piece, I mean, what's distinctive now is like looking back at Gen X, and you don't really hear people talk about Gen X much of anything. It's always about the boomers. It's always okay boomer, or it's always the millennials ruined everything. Gen X, I mean, I was reading this tweet a while back where somebody was like, they're going through why all the generations were good or bad. And they're like, Gen X, I have no idea. I mean, it's funny because even like X itself, like the letter is almost like a placeholder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like we're probably never going to have a Gen X president. Like all of the boomer politicians are hanging on to power, and they're probably going to pass it on to the AOCs and Mamdamis of the world. So Gen X is just quietly shuffling off like soon into retirement and never made a big splash. You know, it was like before, you know, the 90s and 2000s were kind of a more of an apolitical time. So we just have not made a big splash.
Does it have something to do with the fact that, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, maybe you have, that Anand Giridharadas writes in Winner Take All an interesting kind of the end of the book. He interviews Bill Clinton. I think he's hanging out with him for a few months. And he says Bill Clinton is a man of a generation that sees change in power is only done through the electoral arena. By the time people of our age come to a certain age, I feel like we understand change in power through the cultural arena. I can be an artist, I can be a writer, and this is where real change happens because we've kind of embraced a certain idea about the 60s where these cultural victories are the ones that matter. Politically, that doesn't matter. It's how you're remembered. Can you be?
And MTV, when it first came on and when it was huge, seemed like a revolution. You know, it was like this cultural explosion. You know, you had these musicians that the whole, you know, often it was posed as rebellion, like it was a rebellion against your parents. You know, there was so many songs and videos that was like, you know, what Will Smith's first breakout was Parents Just Don't Understand, right? And there was sort of a middle finger to the system with MTV. And so like a lot of us young people growing up with it, it felt like this is going to change the world. And I guess it did in a certain way, but it mostly changed the style and like how things appeared on screens. Like a lot of MTV video directors end up going to movies. That was a big deal back in the day when all of a sudden, you know, you had David Fincher and some of these other video producers going to movies. And so I think that like MTV revolutionized the way we watch things on screens, but it just didn't actually, you know, change the you know, material realities.
Like if you think about the big fights back then, the big wars over freedom of speech, in an era where no one has held an actual CD or cassette in their hand, right? Remembering the battle over the warning label. That was huge. People were very upset about this. And it wasn't rap that was in the crosshairs initially. It was rock music that was in the crosshairs because rock music had to be more outrageous. Wasp had a song on an album that the label made a pull, so they released it as a single. Animal, Fuck Like a Beast. You know, it sounds tame now, considering all the ass eating that these young kids do in their rap songs. Just eating.
I was not ready for that.
So much ass. That having a song called Animal Fuck Like a Beast was like, this is a bridge too far. Twisted Sister has songs about oral surgery. Prince has a song called Controversy where he says, am I straight? Am I gay? It's too much. We need to put warning labels on this because if our children hear Prince, oh my God, what's going to happen to them?
Well, not only the warning labels, but in the years before that, there was sort of the warning labels come as a result of years of political organizing by like parents groups and church groups that said that MTV was destroying the morals of the youth. I grew up in an evangelical church, and I remember this video that my parents got for us to watch, and it was called Why Not Rock? And it was like, you know, they showed you remember backmasking where they went and played these old records backwards, and then there was like satanic messages and like drug messages. It was all of that, and just about all of the demonic messages that rock was embedded in MTV songs. So yeah, the warning labels were sort of like when it hit a critical mass, and all of a sudden you had Tipper Gore, and even it was sort of like Republicans and Democrats were both troubled by MTV at the time.
I'm drinking out of a Judas Priest coffee mug, and they are one of the bands in question that you're talking about. It was two people. It was Ozzy Osbourne and Judas Priest that actually went to trial.
That's
over
right.
Young men that committed suicide while playing those records.
That's right.
And Judas Priest really thought that they were going to go to prison over better by you, better than me. So it's insane.
Yeah. What's interesting is that that thing still happens a little bit, but it's now with like rap lyrics and gang members. Like you hear about like some of these trials, like the Young Thug trial,
RICO charges.
Yeah. Where they're talking about like organized gang activity supposedly in these lyrics. But yeah, in the early 80s, it was like the satanic metal was influencing kids to kill themselves and to start sacrificing their cats, I guess, to Satan.
What's crazy to me to think about, that was the furthest thing from the reality of these songs. When we talk about how inward looking grunge is, one of the most inward looking genres of metal to me, of music, is probably thrash metal, right? Metallica's second record, you have Fade to Black, and throughout the 80s, everyone had to have some dark, brooding song with an acoustic intro to get to some heavy part. So you can have a deep understanding of your depression. But these songs were never supposed to be about just offing yourself, right? And rap in its early stages, when we talk about quote unquote gangsta rap, everyone says that they're street reporters. We're just telling you what you don't hear on the news, even though the news only talks about what we're telling you, but still we're telling you what you don't hear on the news. To fast forward to where we are today, where crime is not what it was in the 80s and 90s, nowhere near it.
Yeah.
But you have rap music that is probably more self-descriptive of the acts that young people are doing, to the point where they're creating beefs where there is none. In Stockton recently, there was a shooting. I don't know if you saw this. There was a shooting in Stockton basically over rap stuff. And because they're all intertwined with these gangs. And again, this isn't gangs of a time where a gang is a distribution network for cocaine cells. This is like, just, we think this is how hood people act. And these people shot up a kid's birthday party, and they killed 4 people and hit 15, trying to get one rapper. I'm not saying that Young Thug needs to go up on a RICO charge, but so many years after MTV, the fears that all these conservatives had about infecting the youth. What say you about situations like Stockton?
Well, I don't know, but it is interesting that to think about how a big rap controversy back in like the early 90s was the 2 Live Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And they got banned because of explicit lyrics. And it is interesting thinking about like 30 years ago, they were these outlaws and they couldn't get radio play. And yeah, there was like Senate hearings about it. But now, I mean, think about like Wet Ass Pussy. how explicit some of these songs are, and now everybody shrugs. And it's just it's crazy sometimes to think about how much culture has changed, and there's sort of this anything goes mentality now, but back then it was sort of the last bastion of a certain kind of conservatism.
Yeah, is that conservatism kind of gone now? Do they just not care? Do they care more about, do they not have to care about musical cultural production like they did in the past, because now they have a microphone with podcast world that they didn't have before?
No, they do, but it's just different because they care about like wokeness or liberal ideas or turning people trans. So it's just like a different kind of moral panic. Before it was like, oh, you're gonna worship Satan or like have premarital sex. That was more the concerns back 30, 40 years ago, where now it's like, you're going to become a lib.
Like, I had never heard a song, like a rap song, like turn that dick inside out, turn that dick inside out. Like, there's no gonna make you trans song.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe there is. I just haven't heard it.
I don't
it's not my algorithm. But now I'm curious. Now I got to find it.
Tuck those nuts. Tuck those. Like, I don't think that song would. I don't think anyone would care to do it. I don't know. It feels like there's nothing for them to fight. Ben Shapiro tried for 5 minutes to say something about the Wet Ass Pussy song, but then there's going to be someone that's going to say something even more outrageous.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean. Back in the early MTV days, there wasn't a lot of politics. There was a little bit, like like for instance, I mentioned Phil Collins, but he actually put one of the most anti-Reagan pop songs on the air. Land of Confusion. Do you remember that video?
I remember the video too. Yeah, the puppet video. Yeah.
Yeah, where Reagan was like an absurd puppet that was going to nuke everybody, and he was barely conscious. He was an idiot. But beyond that, there just wasn't a lot of political content. You didn't really even think about Republicans or Democrats on early MTV. You were kind of like vaguely aware of the man or the system. And there were certain things that MTV did as far as like free to bet. If you remember that, like the Beastie Boys and Rock the Vote. Yeah, it was Rock the Vote, but it wasn't, it was sort of generically kind of leaning Democrat. I mean, because they did also have Bill Clinton on in like 1992, but it wasn't always super explicit. Where now I just feel like things the political content and like the culture wars have made things way more explicit between the war between liberals and conservatives.
Why don't we have that same distinction in the 80s and 90s that we have now, where everyone talks about the left? I don't remember, even if I don't even know remembering. If you go back and watch any sort of political content, it was about Democrats and Republicans. Maybe you'd hear the word conservative, maybe you'd hear the word liberal, but no one talked about the left and conservatives. Why?
Yeah, because the left was dead. They didn't have to.
That's fair.
There was no real left. No one was talking about the DSA in 1987.
all 500 of them.
Yeah, there was no Beastie Boys of the DSA.
Who wins in a fight between 1987 DSA and the 1987 Guardian Angels?
Oh God, the Guardian Angels! Are you kidding me? I mean, the 1987 Guardian Angels could beat the DSA now. Sorry to say, but I just got to call it.
I want to see that fight, and if anyone's going to make any kind of AI art, that is the art that we need to see. Is 1987 Guardian Angels versus contemporary.
I mean,
DSA.
Look, I like Mamdami, but if he was in a fight with Curtis Silva, I don't think it would go well.
Someone said in the comment, truer words have never been
good politics, but not a tough guy.
Okay, I have some lightning round questions for you that I tried to make some ridiculous ones that you could giggle at before you head off to bed. Beavis and Butthead or King of the Hill?
Beavis and Butthead. I mean, we already talked about King of the Hill.
Okay, Beavis and Butthead or Liquid Television?
Beavis and Butthead. Liquid Television.
They come out of Liquid Television, right?
Liquid Television was interesting, and we haven't really talked about like some of the other programming that MTV did that was more like avant-garde. And like Liquid Television, I remember watching that when I was a teenager and being like, "This is crazy." There was. It's so interesting that they ended up making a movie on that like Aeon Flu cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like adult and dark and weird. And I remember like the whole like mosquito on someone's eyeball and like weird imagery like that. It was like haunting. But some of it was good and some of it was just weird for weird's sake, I think.
Yes, 100% agree. Headbangers Ball or UMTV Raps?
Oh my God, how do I not sound racist here?
Don't say the N-word. That's all you have to do. Just don't say it. Okay.
Before I say this, let me tell you that I also used to collect MTV Rap cards. So this would be, not the easiest choice for me. And I listened to a lot of rap that a lot of white, lower middle class kids did. I had a Run DMC tape. So that is I have a black friend comment right there. To say probably Headbangers Ball.
Headbangers Ball. Okay.
Yeah.
Adam Curry or Ricky Rackman?
I don't even remember Ricky Rackman.
Ricky Rackman was the guy that hosted Headbangers Ball.
Oh,
Adam Curry was the blonde guy, and he would put on the leather jacket when he would host Headbangers Ball, and they kicked him out for Ricky Rackman, who was friends with Axl Rose.
Man, maybe I boycotted after Adam Curry left because I don't even remember that guy. No, I was thinking it went back to what's his name, Matt, the bald guy.
Matt Penfield?
Yeah, Matt Penfield.
No,
I was a Penfield fan.
No, Penfield. He did something a little different.
Alternative Nation, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what he did. Yeah. Okay, so Adam Curry. Man, I did not see the Adam Curry for Ricky Rackman. Madonna, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga. Who do you throw out of the raft first?
I mean, Madonna is so weird now. Like I'm
But
trying. I'm
because
gonna
we're talking
try.
about MTV, it's 1984 Madonna.
Okay, because anything in the last 20 years besides maybe the song Ray of Light. Yeah, but dude, Madonna was the original. Like I feel like that Lady Gaga's was sort of like the maximalist version of Madonna.
Yeah.
She took what Madonna did and all of a sudden it was, would wear meat dresses and stuff like that. Or like, what hasn't Madonna done? Okay, I'll try that. And I think Lady Gaga is a better actor than Madonna, but Madonna's music and what she did to pioneer in the mid 80s was amazing.
And the 90s. I'd say through the 90s. Yeah. The Sex Book.
Oh shit.
Some of the movies, some of the soundtracks. Kind of got to give it to Madonna. I will throw Taylor Swift out of the life raft first.
Yeah, and I will dance with the gays to Like a Prayer no matter where I'm at in a bar.
It's a great song. I loved that video. It made
very sacrilegious. Like, also got in trouble with conservatives. She
kissed Black Jesus.
That's right. And it was very kind of Jesus sexual.
Jesus sexual.
Yeah, it was a Jesus sexual. It was like the eroticness of Catholicism, which no one really explores that whole thing. All the tradcasts aren't talking about the sexual tension of Catholicism.
Of Madonna about to get boned down by 6'5" Black Jesus.
Madonna was the opposite of a trad wife.
Madonna was like, did you see Jesus fucking hang dong?
Like, there is a half naked man on a cross. I'm thinking about the naked part.
What you guys are looking at, but I'm gonna have me a piece of that chocolate. Are the kids missing out by not having grown up with this type of programming in their life?
Yes and no. I mean, TikTok in a certain way, there's elements of TikTok that's like a hyper version of MTV. The funny thing is like when people used to talk about MTV, they actually talked about like short attention spans and how it changed the visual vocabulary of music, right? And that it was like a quick style. But now we think of that as kind of a joke. I mean, now when I watch these first 2 hours of MTV, it seemed actually kind of slow because we've been accustomed now to like a hyper version of these quick cuts and just like this dynamic visual style. And so it's interesting that a lot of like modern pop hits, they keep down to under 2 minutes to keep people's attention. And so I guess what I'm saying is that there's part of me now that is, nostalgic for it's like a longer form video, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that what kids are missing out on was sort of like the in-person communal part of MTV. Like my brother and I, we were latchkey kids, and we had this short window because, like I said, my parents were religious. They wouldn't let us watch MTV. So, but we had this window when we get home from school around 3:30, 3:45 to 5 o'clock when they would, come home to watch it. Right. And it was like this furtive, secretive thing that we did when they were gone. Right. And it felt like rebellious. And we would watch with our friends together. Like we would be in somebody's basement and watching these videos together. And then so much of like TikTok and the video content of now is just you hunched over your phone. Mm-hmm. And so they're missing sort of like the communalness of that. And plus, like, and I think you probably know this, it's just that music was a way bigger part of young people's identities back then, like talking about what your favorite bands were, what genres you liked was like a big part of who you were.
That's how you met people.
Yeah.
No, I miss that. I think we've all kind of maybe if you're of a certain age, you ask that question, but generally everybody kind of listens to everything because everything sounds the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were glaring differences in genres of music. If you liked goth, you probably weren't listening to country.
Yeah, and to his credit, MTV did like expand the musical palette of a lot of people because you go back to the 70s and there was a lot of cool shit, but it tended to fit under like a certain small bit of genres where if you listen to like a lot of 90s stuff, a lot of stuff that was on MTV, like none of it would be played today on pop radio, or rock radio. Like even like rock radio and country radio and pop radio, all the stuff kind of sounds the same. Where if you go back to like the mid 90s where there's like Primus, singing about Three Little Pigs and
when known as Big Brown Beaver.
exactly. Exactly. But then you also had swing music. You had like the Squirrel Nut Zippers and you had Faith No More and you had all of these different genres and different artists. Like some of them were kind of avant-garde. And so I think it did expand the musical palette of so many people. I think they're missing that.
MTV gives us new metal, right? We get Run DMC and Aerosmith.
That's right.
So
yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that there's so many artists now that a lot of these modern pop artists try to recapture that. They try to sample. I mean, everybody, like Sabrina Carpenter, all these different artists sound like 80s pop. And it's so much pastiche, right? It's so much imitation. So it's like, why not go back to the real thing?
Well, that's what we're going to be doing in the Champagne Room, and I know you have to go shut it down and go do dad stuff.
Well, I might stay a little bit. That sounds fun.
Okay, well then I'll email you the link to the Champagne Room so we can. I made a playlist of videos from 84 to 89.
Oh,
I wanted to stay within the realm of MTV before it really leaned into shows, before reality television. So it's a wide range of artists from Prince to the Sugar Cubes. I think you people will dig it. So
all right, let's do it.
Thank you guys for watching. Wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there's a link in the description to Ryan's article about not just the death of MTV, but maybe the futility of Generation X, a generation that Ryan and I are a part of. So there's a lot of self-reflection in his writing, but I did want to take a bit of a nostalgic romp into a certain era of MTV's 40 years on the air, when it was just videos and VJs and the occasional interview with an artist. I myself discovered so much music I had no business listening to as a Black kid from Richmond, California, because of MTV. So thank you for writing the piece and giving me a reason to do this show. You are a wonderful man for that reason alone.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I appreciate it. It was fun.
And we'll meet you guys in the Champagne Room. We are out.